Hey everyone, I'm Ashley Banfield, and we're looking at a very dark mystery.
Welcome to the Hopetown Inn and Marina here on Elbow Cay in the Bahamas.
Anyone who knows this area calls it paradise, but there's a dark side to this haven.
In fact, it might be more accurate to call this a case of paradise lost.
Since we are on the 4th day of our investigation here in the Abacos.
Right in those isolated islands north of Nassau and north of New Providence.
And squeezing information out of this place is incredibly tough.
Really tough. It is hard getting details from the Royal Bahamian Police.
And the local residents are just as quiet. Many deeply distrust the media and simply refuse to talk.
Even so, we have uncovered a few critical details that we must share today.
Specifically,
we have now obtained the very last known photo of Lynette Hooker alive.
It was snapped only minutes before she and her husband,
Brian Hooker, left the beautiful seaside resort where they had been enjoying drinks late on the afternoon of Saturday, April 4th.
This single photograph holds so many vital clues, especially the timestamp. Their clothes, their body language, and their actions. But we are digging deeper than the photo. I am speaking directly to the bartender who served them their final round. He has some crucial insights to share, and he is correcting several key details too. Because the local rumor mill is spinning fast, and the staff member who first told me about their drinks was mistaken. But our bartender is setting things straight. Let's look closer at that image.
Here is the exact pool area Brian and Lynette Hooker visited around 4:30 on that Saturday afternoon, April 4th.
As you know very well by now, they had anchored their private luxury yacht, Soulmate. Let me pause right there for a moment and point out how incredibly sad it is that the yacht they shared was named Soulmate.
Because in this criminal investigation, Brian remains a prime suspect.
And that comes straight from the local Bahamian authorities.
The active investigation continues. It makes you wonder, could your actual soulmate really do what,
at one point,
Brian was alleged to have done when he was locked up under heavy suspicion by police?
He hasn't been charged with any crime and is already back in America.
Specifically, he is in Sacramento right now. More on that shortly, but let's return to the picture.
Now, zooming in, we can see Lynette is wearing a black swimsuit and a green cover-up.
I confirmed this detail with her daughter and the daughter's boyfriend, Stephen.
They both identify the couple as Brian and Lynette.
You can recognize him by the USMC tattoo on his left shoulder, and that is certainly Lynette.
We spotted that exact swimsuit cover-up,
or one just like it, featured heavily across their old social media videos.
Crucially, she is wearing that cover-up, which is highly significant because Brian completely failed to mention it during his hours of questioning with the police. During his call with Search and Rescue, he only mentioned a black two-piece swimsuit, making sure to clarify it was not a bikini.
Lynette's own daughter, Carly, explained to me that the outfit was a black two-piece designed to look like a solid one-piece, though it was definitely separate.
That is all Brian claimed.
Brian described the black swimsuit, but completely left out the fact that she had a green cover-up on over it.
Yet this photo shows her wearing a critical piece of clothing he never once brought up to the investigators.
Then there is the photo's timestamp, and I should explain first exactly how I tracked it down.
To begin with, rumors of this picture were spreading fast, and locals talk. Take that boat anchored right behind me, for instance. It is just out of view. Let me turn the camera slightly. Notice that blue hull over there, the one on that boat.
The crew on board confirmed the photo existed, but they absolutely refused to tell me who was actually holding on to it.
A total wall of silence. But anyway,
I kept asking questions, and very late last night, I finally secured the image from a local fisherman named Joe.
By the way, that is a massive wahoo fish he is holding.
Joe is always out on the water, and just about everyone around here knows him.
He is an American expat who has made this place his home for years.
He actually snapped that photo specifically for his mother.
She had sent him a text.
So he stepped outside on that gorgeous evening, captured the pool, the crashing waves, and the breeze, and sent the shot right back to her.
He actually took 2 different shots. One frame is much sharper. When you zoom in on Brian, you can clearly make out his distinctive arm tattoo. Joe did not realize what he had captured until the next day.
Wait a minute, I think I have a photo of those two.
The timestamp reads exactly 6:34 p.m.
At 6:34 p.m., we can confirm that Brian and Lynette are still lounging by the pool.
The local bartender corroborates this exact timeline, recalling that he poured their final round between 6 and 6:30 p.m. Security footage does exist, but the Royal Bahamian Police Force is keeping it under incredibly tight lock and key. They have forbidden the general manager of the Abaco Inn from sharing it, even with Lynette's daughter, Carly.
It is incredibly heartbreaking, especially since we spent so much time on the island with Carly and her boyfriend Steve.
Once they arrived at El Bouquet, we accompanied them back to the site, which I will show you in a moment.
We walked with them through the Abaco Inn, the last place her mother was ever seen,
and I interviewed them right on the spot to get their raw reactions after seeing the actual layout of the property.
But it struck me as highly suspicious that the manager refused to hand over the footage.
He allowed them to view the security tape in his office, but flat out denied them a copy. While they were reviewing the footage, they immediately noticed the exact timestamp marking the moment Brian and Lynette walked out of the resort. And according to their memory, somewhere around 6:38 in the evening, give or take. That means this photo, captured at 6:34, was taken just minutes before they made their final exit. But there is a catch. It completely contradicts the timeline of the story that Brian shared with everyone, claiming he departed around 7 or 7:30. Because this timestamp is way before 7. That discrepancy stretches the timeline by another full hour, raising questions about when the boat capsized and how long they drifted toward Marsh Harbor. For a long time, we believed they were lost for 8 or 9 hours. Now, we are looking at 10 hours or more. And remember, it was still broad daylight. Right now, it is 6:35, and I can barely look ahead because the blinding sun is beating right into my eyes. The sun is slowly sinking. Sunset does not hit until around 7:30, leaving plenty of lingering twilight after that. Darkness does not fall until 8, so let us assume they departed by 6:45. That leaves over an hour of clear daylight. But a tiny dinghy does not take that long to cross. It only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to motor out from the Abaco Inn to their anchorage just outside the White Sound Channel. Regardless, it is simply another suspicious piece of evidence in this highly bizarre case, especially since his story constantly clashes with other statements he made. So, 6:34 is the precise timestamp on Joe's photo. A huge thanks to Joe and his mother. I really appreciate you capturing that moment and taking the time to share it with our investigation. It helps immensely. Now, there is another lead I want to share from our first visit to the Abaco Inn just a few days ago. Probably about 3 days ago now. Maybe 4. The days are blurring together. Staff members recalled that the couple only ordered 2 rounds of Bacardi Light and soda. They indeed ordered exactly 2 rounds, and they chose Bacardi Light, but they skipped the club soda. It was Coke. While this minor detail seems trivial, getting the facts straight is critical in any cold case. And we know they were drinking a Cuba Libre, that is Bacardi Light and Coke with lime, because the bartender confirmed it himself. The bartender directly. I tracked him down after he had been off shift for a few nights, allowing me to get a first-hand account of his interactions with the couple. Did they stand out? Not at all. Was there any sign of tension or anger between them during their stay? Did he seem agitated or annoyed, or was there anything unusual about their behavior? According to Ken Sweeting, the bartender, the answer is a flat no. Listen to my full interview with him at the Abaco Inn. Now, if you are looking to bring in some extra cash this season, listen closely.
Our sponsor, Free Cash, is giving away a $10 welcome bonus when you use the link in the description.
Free Cash is an incredible platform. You can make real cash just by completing easy tasks like playing games or answering surveys. Payouts start at only $25. Delivered via PayPal, Visa, or gift cards. Plus, Free Cash holds an impressive 4.8-star rating on Trustpilot. Just tap the link in the description or scan the QR code to try it for free and grab a $10 bonus. So tell me about the afternoon that couple walked in here. What exactly did you see? All right, so Saturday afternoon. I estimate around 4:30.
The man walked up to the bar.
His wife headed straight for the pool. I never really saw or spoke to her.
She just slipped right past. It was a chaotic afternoon.
He ordered 2 rum and cokes, Cuba Libres specifically. Rum and coke or rum and soda. We initially heard it was rum and soda. Thanks for clarifying. So 2 Cuba Libres, white rum, coke, and a squeeze of lime. I handed him the drinks.
He took them down to the pool. It was maybe an hour or so before he returned.
He ordered another round, but from the other side, because he approached from the pool, instead of coming down the usual path.
I poured him his second round of drinks.
Then he headed straight back to the water, and that was that.
I only ever served them 4.
Did he say anything to you?
Hardly anything. Just when he ordered the drinks. But the second time, he actually thanked me for the fast service because we were so busy. We had close to 200 guests on the property that evening. And on that second trip to the bar, he was shirtless, correct? No shirt, but he wore one the first time. Yeah, when they first arrived at the resort.
But when he returned for the second round, he came straight from the pool.
I have no idea if they went in the ocean or the pool, but he walked up bare-chested the second time and said, "Oh, I am sorry. I know dinner time is coming up and all that." And I told him, "Man, do not worry about it. You are only stopping by the bar for a quick drink while using the pool anyway, so it is really no big deal." I processed his credit card,
Finished up the transaction.
and that was honestly the final time I laid eyes on either of them. Would you say he was highly intoxicated or moderately? No, I really would not. I mean, he probably had a bit of a buzz going. But he definitely was not drunk. How was his demeanor? Honestly, he seemed perfectly fine to me, like everything was completely normal. There were absolutely no red flags, nothing out of the ordinary. Did he seem angry? No, not upset or agitated in the slightest. At least not with me. I did not sense any anger from him whatsoever. He actually seemed to be in high spirits.
Yes. Were they having fun?
They seemed to be. Did you catch them bickering or hear any raised voices?
No, ma'am. I never saw anything like that.
If there had been any fighting or arguing, it would have happened down near the pool area.
And my post was on the other side up here. Right. From what everyone else around here tells me, they seemed like a completely forgettable couple. Nothing out of the ordinary. It was strange, honestly. They just did not stand out at all. No, did you actually see them leave? I did not. Do you have any idea what time they left? No, not exactly. You would probably need to speak with the general manager to see if you can pull the security camera footage, because as I mentioned before, we were slammed that night. So I had no reason or time to monitor the people who were slipping in and out of the bar. Do you recall when they ordered their final drinks? I would guess it was somewhere between 6 and 6:30. Right, roughly. That leaves them plenty of time to finish by, say, 6:35. Yeah, if they ordered around 6:30, they would be done by 7. Yeah. Word is they left around 7 or 7:30, but I cannot be sure. The timeline is hard to pin down.
Yeah, and as I said, I was not. You said 6:30?
I was not tracking them, but they were definitely here past 6:30.
Well, we have a photo of them at 6:34.
I think so, but it is tough to tell.
What about after that?
Right, since we know they were down at the pool at that moment. I can grab you a card from my manager. And you can get in touch with them over email
to see if they can share security footage from after 6:30, just to verify exactly what time they walked away.
Did the police come by to question you about serving them or who they were? I did talk to the detectives.
I wrote down my formal statement, signed it, and told them exactly what I told you.
I was on shift.
So my mind was elsewhere, and I absolutely did not expect a situation like this to come out of it.
That leads to my next question.
Once you heard what happened later on, what went through your mind? It was a total shock, honestly, especially when the police finally released those photos of them. And my supervisor showed me a picture of them. I immediately realized, oh, I actually served that gentleman.
I knew right away that I served him at my bar.
I even remembered exactly what he drank, because I pride myself on being a sharp bartender.
I have been working behind the bar for about 20 years now.
You remember the orders. I did 6 years behind the bar, so I completely understand.
You remember the drinks, because an order reveals a person's character.
Exactly. Most of the time, it really does.
Usually, at least.
It is a massive shock, honestly. This kind of dark mystery just does not happen in a quiet place like this.
No, this is definitely not normal. We are looking at a complete and total anomaly here.
Look, Elbow Cay is normally just a quiet, peaceful, laid-back little island.
There is barely any trouble around here. It is usually a slice of paradise.
Crime is rare. If anything ever happens, we are talking minor, petty stuff. Maybe someone swiping a package off the ferry dock because it was left unattended. That level.
Just really minor stuff.
We do not even know if a crime occurred yet. The active investigation is still unfolding. Does your gut tell you what might have happened here?
Honestly, the only thing I can tell you is,
it feels highly suspicious because the timeline and the different stories just do not match up.
At least not to me. I get that exact feeling too. Thanks for opening up to me, Ken. Anytime. Good luck with the big wedding you have tonight.
I know you will be running around. Thank you. Really glad you could chat with me. Take care.
It is going to be packed tonight. We have almost 150 guests arriving for the wedding.
I am incredibly grateful to Ken Sweeting for sharing his perspective on this case. He is deeply shocked.
Naturally, that this is happening here. This island is usually such a peaceful sanctuary.
Locals simply are not accustomed to this kind of unsettling mystery.
While visiting the Abaco Inn, I sat down with Steve and Carly, who is Lynette's daughter.
She traveled all the way from Michigan to the Bahamas, taking multiple connecting flights.
Step by step.
Journeying first from Nassau to Marsh Harbor, then taking the local ferry straight over here to Elbow Cay. Today was actually her very first time stepping foot inside the Abaco Inn.
We joined Carly and Steve hitching a ride to the inn in their golf cart.
We talked as we drove. She tries to stay strong, but you can see the deep pain in her eyes and hear the heartbreak in her voice.
This ordeal is tearing her apart.
It is an agonizing task, desperately searching for any clue about what truly happened to her missing mother.
Come tomorrow morning.
And remember, today is Friday, April 17th. By tomorrow, it will be exactly 2 agonizing weeks.
That is a devastatingly long time to live with 0 answers.
Not knowing where your mother is, or if investigators are even doing anything about it. We traveled together, and in just a moment, I will share the intense conversation we had once we arrived at the Abaco Inn.
They surveyed the area while we pointed out several key details we had already discovered on the property.
Then we spoke on the very dock where she likely stood, where her mother and Brian last tied up their small dinghy,
before stepping down the ladder one final time to make their way back.
Through the White Sound Channel to their anchored boat. But earlier this afternoon, they managed to step back on board the boat, Soulmate. The vessel is still tied to the mooring awl, floating silently in Marsh Harbor, right by the conch inn.
Just off the dock at the Conch Inn, some local residents gave them a lift, getting them out onto the water and on board. So, this allowed Carly and Steve to step onto their mother's vessel, search the cabins, and retrieve a few deeply personal keepsakes to remember her by.
These items belonged to her mother, and they voluntarily shared this footage with me, showing absolute trust.
Meaning, I am not compromising anyone's privacy or trust here.
They willingly handed over photos and video clips of them boarding the vessel. Heading below deck to search for clues.
Take a look.
I know, baby, I know. They spent every possible moment searching the boat, trying to salvage any personal items that held deep, meaningful memories of Carly's mother, LYNETTE.
Let me share the list of belongings Carly managed to recover from down in the cabin. She recovered her mother's favorite diamond necklace, which has a distinct letter L pendant for LYNETTE.
And, in fact, Carly mentioned her mother wore it constantly, making her incredibly grateful that this single piece of jewelry survived, giving her something tangible to hold on to. LYNETTE also wore headbands constantly, so Carly made it a priority to find them. During our interview today, she was actually wearing one of the headbands salvaged from the vessel. In one of the photos, you can spot Steve clutching the entire collection of headbands in his hand. And she also, this is truly heartbreaking, she discovered a hand-painted picture frame she had made for her mother. Naturally, she brought that frame back, along with a small Buddha statue, because LYNETTE loved those figures. They made sure to save that too. Just a few items, but they carried immense emotional value for her. Now, once we left the soulmate and returned to shore, they caught a ferry here. That is when we rode a golf cart to the Abaco Inn together. It gave us a moment to discuss all the new information they have uncovered since arriving. Before this, they were just staring at flat maps, trying to pinpoint exactly where this happened, wondering what the area looked like, because nothing seemed to add up or make sense. But details clarify when you walk the path. When you navigate the waters, ride the trails, and physically map out the connections between locations. That is when I interviewed Carly and Steve down by the water, right on the dock, where the small boats dock. I pointed out the two main piers where local boaters pull up in their tenders. For reference, a tender is just a smaller boat used to reach a larger vessel. I wanted to know how walking this ground has shifted their entire perspective. Take a look. Tell me your thoughts now that you are standing here at the Abaco Inn. I am relieved to get answers and grateful to see video footage of my mother during her final hours. Seeing her at the bar and walking down to the shoreline is helpful, but that is all we have. Do you have a clearer understanding of the local geography now? Having finally explored the physical space where they likely docked, could their tender have been moored right here, or perhaps over there? Does being here on the ground give you a clearer picture of things? Yeah, I actually managed to get out on the water. I basically retraced their final steps, checked out the bar they visited before the Abaco Inn, and started asking questions. They claimed nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Actually, they said nothing at all.
Yeah, so nothing seemed unusual to them? Yes, exactly.
And looking at the water, even at high tide, the water looked shallow enough that they easily could have touched the bottom in places. So, that makes me wonder why he did not just jump in, especially since he is quite tall. It simply makes no sense why he did not go in after her. But the bigger mystery is why they did not just stick close to the shoreline.
Why not steer clear of those pilings, since they are only positioned where the water is deep?
Beyond those pilings, it gets shallow. A boat of that size does not need deep water to navigate. This vessel could have easily run in less than 2 feet of water. If she fell overboard to the left or right while he was navigating outside the pilings, he could have easily stayed on that outer side.
And the water there is only 2 to 3 feet deep, even at high tide, and even with the waves.
Generally, the rough waves do not even start until you pass that final piling. That is where the wind kicks up and the water gets choppy. He could have tracked the coastline the entire way on the left, but he chose not to.
Yeah. Has your perspective on Brian's story shifted at all since you landed here?
No, his entire story has been trash from day one.
I felt it was highly suspicious the whole time.
Seeing this place in person only proves to us how incredibly suspicious his story is. Right. You had the chance to visit Soulmate and step aboard your mother's boat.
Yeah. Can you describe how that felt?
But it is just so painful.
I gathered a few of her things. I took her headband and one of her necklaces.
The one you are wearing?
Yes. And I found a picture frame I had painted for her, along with a small piece she sewed, just to help me remember her. How did it feel stepping onto that boat?
It was incredibly painful.
Yeah, I wept the whole time. What about the trip back? We owe everything to some complete strangers who offered to give us a ride.
They just walked up, asked if we needed anything, and we told them we needed a boat. And they just stepped up. Honestly, the Bahamian people are some of the kindest we have ever encountered.
They have been absolutely wonderful. I must agree, we are experiencing the exact same thing. We have received so many rides and so much help from locals here, and they are always eager to assist.
Yeah, and they all share the exact same suspicion.
They all see his story is complete trash, and that he is a terrible person.
What are your thoughts on the fact that he fled the island the very next day? To me, it just proves his true character and how little his word actually means.
I mean, how do you claim you will never stop searching for her, then leave the very next day? Using the excuse of helping your mother when you already knew she had been sick for years.
Why choose now?
Has anything really changed?
Since you arrived on this island, allowing you to physically walk along the exact path and retrace the final steps Lynette took before she disappeared? Has your perspective shifted, or have you uncovered new details since setting foot here? Well, he claimed they departed at 7:30, but the timeline reveals they left at 6:30. So right around 6:30. Plus, the photograph taken at 6:34 tells a different story. It firmly places him right at that spot at that exact moment.
Exactly.
We have a missing hour where anything could have happened, but we are completely blind.
We simply do not know the truth.
What we do know is that it took him 9 hours to drift across that channel. What is that distance? Maybe 4 to 6 miles? Local mariners point out that even in a 20-knot wind and him inside that small dinghy, especially since he claimed he was paddling. Paddling against the wind makes absolutely zero sense when you should be heading straight for the safety of the shoreline.
The journey should have taken 2 to 3 hours at most.
That leaves several critical hours unaccounted for.
Right. And why relocate his vessel immediately after she vanished?
That is another massive red flag.
If you expected her to return after being lost, or hoped someone rescued her, and she boarded another boat, she would return to where she thought you were anchored, only to find you completely gone.
She would be standing there, asking, where did the boat go? What do you make of the statements from the search and rescue team?
He was fixated on recovering his dinghy, but never inquired about the ongoing search efforts.
He never asked where the search command post was, or how he could help. It strongly suggests he just wants this entire investigation swept under the rug. Judging by the way he was texting me, it honestly felt like he just wanted me to get over the fact that my mother is gone.
Saying things like, "We will get through this, honey."
Are you kidding?
My mother is missing, and your alibi makes absolutely no sense.
I will not protect you just because you want this entire nightmare to go away.
Have you spoken to him directly since she went missing? Not since he first broke the news. Has he made any effort to contact you, or have you tried reaching out to him yourself?
No.
He did reach out with several calls, texts, and voicemails, but I have refused to answer any of them.
Do you ever plan to?
Never. You refuse to speak with him?
Knowing the evidence, his conflicting alibi, and my own intuition, it is a hard no for me.
What do you believe really happened?
I believe he harmed her and threw her body overboard.
Maybe he did something to her. They reached the boat, and then, as he moved, she somehow ended up lost at sea.
I don't know.
But it wasn't good. You don't believe a single word of his story.
Well, we do know he made it across. And that is probably the only part of his story that actually checks out. He drifted over in that dinghy, but taking 9 hours to float 4 miles in 29-knot winds.
Every single boat captain we spoke with,
And every experienced sailor we spoke with said the exact same thing. It is just not plausible.
Yeah, several hours are completely unaccounted for. What happened during those hours? We still don't know. Thanks, guys. It must be agonizing for Carly, knowing her mother was out there in the dark somewhere. And might still be out there. But having no closure, no real answers at all. I kept thinking she is just a kid and her mother's only child. No brothers, no sisters.
So she and Steve, her boyfriend, are facing all of this entirely on their own.
It was honestly tough to watch last night. I ran into another local while making my rounds, a great guy who fishes these waters often with his dad. They sat down with me.
Over dinner, we started talking, and he told me everyone in town is discussing this case.
Literally everyone is talking. He warned me that these waters are absolutely crawling with sharks. Sure, some people argue. They rarely ever bite, and attacks are unheard of. The last incident was ages ago. But others claim tiger and bull sharks are everywhere, and those are the most aggressive predators out there. So I asked him, how close do they actually get to these areas? Because there are so many boats out here, and people are always dropping anchor and swimming right off the back of their yachts. Most local residents insist that sharks never target swimmers because it is just incredibly rare. Further down the coast, the fishermen return around 5:30, and there are tons of them, but maybe not right in this specific area. Then Jonathan, who was sitting right beside me, showed me a video from a trip with a local captain, and those guys have incredible vision. These local fishing captains
Have bionic vision, practically superhuman. This fishing captain actually spotted a tiger shark lurking way up ahead.
I didn't realize what I was watching. I stared at it for a while as they cruised through the gorgeous water. And then, right there, you see it? A massive tiger shark swimming just outside of the White Sound Channel. That is the exact channel leading out from the Abaco Inn. The very channel Steve and Lynette would have taken, hanging a left as they exited, turning south to head toward their keelboat. Soulmate, a 46-foot ketch. And that boat was sitting only a couple thousand yards away. Actually, not even that far. Well, under 2,000 yards, maybe even under 1,500. Now, this footage you are about to watch comes straight from that channel, right in that exact area. Take a look. That is a massive tiger shark. You heard that correctly, right? We are talking about a serious predator, and it was absolutely huge. Importantly, that specific clip was recorded on Monday, April 6th. That is exactly 1 day after Brian dragged himself onto the beach. He spent a terrifying night drifting over toward Marsh Harbor. And according to his story, Lynette had already gone overboard. Which means that shark was hunting right there that Monday. When I first watched that footage, it just chilled me to the bone. Seriously. It is honestly terrifying to think about all these boaters and swimmers just enjoying themselves in the Sea of Abaco, completely unaware. The water there is incredibly shallow across the entire bay. Maybe 15 feet at most, but usually closer to 10. The clarity is so high you can see the bottom. Large keelboats cannot even navigate these waters. They would scrape the bottom instantly. Their deep hulls simply would not make it through. I have been on boats with a 9-foot draft, and sailing them in the Sea of Abaco is physically impossible. You will spot plenty of sport fishing vessels out there, along with some smaller boats. But those massive yachts requiring deep clearance are completely absent from this area. They need deep keels just to stay upright. Here is the thing. The one thing local experts keep repeating, which I have brought up before, is that you would almost certainly spot a body in this water.
Later on, I will show you the actual footage I obtained. Specifically, the photos showing the United States Coast Guard in action. They were flying methodical grid patterns directly over the waters where Lynette likely drifted. She should have been visible. They deployed advanced sonar and drones.
They even sent up C-130 aircraft to sweep the entire region.
You would have spotted anything because this bay acts almost like a giant swimming pool. It is really no deeper than the shallow end of a standard pool. We're talking 2, 4, 6, maybe 10 feet, reaching 15 only at high tide.
Investigators are convinced that if Lynette was out there, they would have found her.
They searched every single shoreline meticulously. They even deployed scent-tracking dogs along the coast. Absolutely nothing turned up.
Now look closely at this. There is a life jacket just sitting on deck.
It is sitting completely exposed, right in the cockpit. A strong gust of wind would have blown it away, yet there it sits.
That is exactly how Brian abandoned it, which makes no sense.
Nothing on board is secured properly. The entire cabin looks like a scene of absolute chaos. We know the police have searched the boat multiple times and have walked away with critical evidence. Specifically, they seized the oar Brian had used. He claimed he lost the first paddle and told everyone the remaining one was completely broken. But it was not broken at all. I have seen the evidence myself.
In the photograph of the deck, that oar is sitting right there on the boat, and it is a fully functional, intact paddle. It even still had the metal locking pin intact.
Except it wasn't broken, and there was absolutely no socket or mount for that pin anywhere on their small dinghy. This means those oars couldn't actually be used as real oars.
They had to be used as paddles instead.
In fact, we are going to look closely at Brian's own story about exactly how and where he paddled. We will break that down in our next episode, because none of his story adds up.
When he claims he was paddling furiously,
it doesn't make sense to me, and it certainly doesn't fit for other boaters following this case closely.
There is one more detail I have to share, and this part really breaks my heart.
It feels like we are only scratching the surface of this incredibly deep, unsettling mystery. The U.S. Coast Guard investigators who arrived here. They arrived in what looked like a scaled-down version of a C-130 transport plane, bringing their cadaver gog, along with travel kennels and every single piece of equipment they could possibly need. They worked absolutely tirelessly during their short time on the ground. It was incredibly difficult, mainly because they didn't have access to their own boats. They had to rely on Bahamian authorities to ferry them around and guide them through the local waters, and hitching boat rides over to lubbers' quarters just so they could get their search dog onto the ground. That put them at a huge disadvantage, but they still spent about 4 days searching.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
3.5 days, and now they've departed. Honestly, there was only so much they could do out there. But that C-130 style plane, the one that looks like a military transport and opens from the rear, has already flown back to America. That doesn't mean the case is closed. In fact, it is far from over. As I mentioned earlier, a Bahamian official confirmed to me directly that Brian is still a prime suspect. Remember, there is no statute of limitations for murder under United States law, and the government can prosecute homicide even when the crime occurs abroad against an American citizen. So, while the inquiry is active and ongoing, investigators are now moving their primary operations back to the United States. It was disheartening to watch them leave.
Because I strongly feel there is still so much groundwork left to cover. But look, you clear the areas you can, and if the dogs don't find anything, they don't find anything.
Speaking of America, Brian Hooker, as you already know, fled straight back to the United States the very day after they let him out of custody. And I understand why. Because nobody wants to linger in a foreign country when they are the focus of an active homicide probe. But he didn't even have a passport, so he had to fast-track a replacement. I know he lacked one because he claimed his own passport. Lynette's passport,
and the spare key to the dinghy's electric motor all sank to the bottom in his dry bag. That dry bag, by the way, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a large, bright green 18 by 12-inch sack, has never washed up on any beach.
So I have no idea where that bag ended up.
Yet his personal flotation device turned up all the way over on the opposite shoreline, right next to Brian Hooker's dinghy, just 100 yards away.
Why exactly did that flotation device fail? We will cover that in another episode.
In any case, when leaving the country, he claimed he was off to visit his sick mother, but we have now confirmed through law enforcement that he is actually hiding out in Sacramento.
He fled straight to Sacramento, right where his mother, Rita Ward, currently lives. Let us look back at what Rita Ward told News Nation back then. She insisted that Brian would keep searching for his missing wife, Lynette,
And that he speaks with his children over the phone constantly, hoping to reunite with them soon.
But he is not searching here. He is absolutely not looking here.
In fact, we have found zero evidence that he ever stepped foot on a search vessel at all. Local rescue workers revealed that his immediate concern was not his wife, but how to retrieve his lost dinghy.
He never once asked where the search operations were being coordinated from.
He never asked, "What do we do next?" or "How many boats are out there?"
He showed absolutely zero interest in the logistics, the progress, or how he could assist the rescue teams.
He simply did not ask. His only question was, "How do I get my boat out?" To be completely fair, though, we must look at this from a sailor's perspective on a deep keelboat or a sailboat. When you anchor, you cannot just walk to the shore.
You absolutely need a tender.
You must have a smaller transport boat, whether a dinghy or a tender, to get around, so his persistent questions about it make logical sense.
Even in an emergency, you need one. Otherwise, you
are left completely stranded on board.
Yet, it remains highly suspicious that he prioritized his gear over any details regarding the search for his missing wife. Keep in mind, this occurred a mere few hours after he had washed ashore.
Let us look at what was going through his mind, because Brian Hooker was recorded making a telling statement.
"I am staying in the Bahamas until my wife is found.
I called off all our plans. We were headed home, but now I will extend my visa.
I just know that I absolutely despise this boat.
And if she is gone, I will never step foot on this vessel again. I am selling it."
Yet, he did not stick around. He departed in a rush, having done almost nothing to actually locate her.
He did briefly ask a few people for a boat, asking if anyone could help, but he never followed up on it. Realistically, he had almost no time to conduct a search anyway, because a mere 4 days went by
between the moment he first washed up on the beach and when police arrested him and locked him up.
Once he was released from jail, the search ended completely because he fled the area immediately.
That is the situation directly from Hopetown on Elbow Cay,
located in the Abaco Islands of the Bahamas.
It is a long name, but a truly beautiful destination. It is just deeply tragic to see such a dark mystery unfold in paradise. However, we have some highly compelling evidence coming up next.
We spoke with the individual who spent the most time alongside Brian right after he was rescued.
And let me assure you,
what Brian confessed to this man completely contradicts the stories he was telling to his own friends.
We will cover all of that shortly, so please subscribe and hit that like button. It supports our investigations tremendously.
More than you know. Thanks to everyone for listening, and thank you for watching this investigation.
And remember,
the truth isn't just serious, it's drop dead.